Chapter 5 The Horror of Ylourgne. Gaspard, returning from his dark plunge into Lethean emptiness, found himself gazing into the eyes of Néter, those eyes of liquid night and ebony, in which swam the chill, malignant fires of stars that had gone down to irremeable perdition. For some time, in the confusion of his senses, he could see nothing but the eyes, which seemed to have drawn him forth like baleful magnets from his swoon. Apparently disembodied, or set in a face too vast for human cognizance, they burned before him in chaotic murk. Then, by degrees, he saw the other features of the sorcerer and the details of a lurid scene, and became aware of his own situation. Trying to lift his hands to his aching head, he found that they were bound tightly together at the wrists. He was half lying, half leaning against an object with hard planes and edges that irked his back. This object he discovered to be a sort of alchemic furnace, or athanor, part of a litter of disused apparatus that stood or lay on the castle floor. Cupels, aludels, cucurbits, like enormous gourds and globes, were mingled in strange confusion with the piled, iron-clasped books and the sooty cauldrons and braziers of a darker science. Néter, propped among Saracenic cushions with arabesques of sullen gold and fulgurant scarlet, was peering upon him from a kind of improvised couch, made with bales of oriental rugs and arrases, to whose luxury the rude walls of the castle, stained with mold and mottled with dead fungi, offered a grotesque foil. Dim lights and evilly swooping shadows flickered across the scene, and Gaspard could hear a guttural hum of voices behind him. Twisting his head a little, he saw one of the stone vats, whose rosy luminosity was blurred and blotted by vampire wings that went to and fro. Gaspard and Néter, it seemed, were alone. The assailants of the youth, whoever or whatever they had been, had presumably returned to another task, after bringing their bound, unconscious captive before the sorcerer. "Welcome," said Néter, after an interval in which the student began to perceive the fatal progress of illness in the pain-pinched features before him. "So, Gaspard du Nord has come to see his former master." The harsh, imperatory voice, with demonic volume, issued appallingly from the wizened frame. "I have come," said Gaspard in laconic echo. "Tell me, what devil's work is this in which I find you engaged, and what have you done with the dead bodies that were stolen by your accursed familiars?" The frail, dying body of Néter, as if possessed by some sardonic fiend, rocked to and fro on the luxurious couch in a long, violent gust of laughter, without other reply. "If your looks bear creditable witness," said Gaspard, when the baleful laughter had ceased, "you are mortally ill, and the time is short in which you can hope to atone for your deeds of malefice and make your peace with God, if indeed it still be possible for you to make peace. What foul and monstrous brew are you preparing to ensure the ultimate perdition of your soul?" The dwarf was again seized by a spasm of diabolic mirth. "Nay, nay, my good Gaspard," he said finally, "I have made another bond than the one with which puling cowards try to purchase the goodwill and forgiveness of the heavenly tyrant. Hell may take me in the end, if it will, but hell has paid, and will still pay, an ample and goodly price. I must die soon, it is true, for my doom is written in the stars, but in death, by the grace of Satan, I shall live again, and shall go forth endowed with the mighty thews of the Anakim, to visit vengeance on the people of Hebron, who have long hated me for my necromantic wisdom, and have held me in derision for my dwarf stature." "What madness is this whereof you dream?" asked the youth, appalled by the more than human frenzy and malignity that seemed to dilate the shrunken frame of Néter and stream in Tartarian luster from his eyes. It is no madness, but a veritable thing, a miracle, mayhap, as life itself is a miracle, fresh from the bodies of the dead, which otherwise would have rotted away in charnel foulness. My pupils and familiars are making for me, beneath my instruction, the giant form whose skeleton you have beheld. My soul, at the death of its present body, will pass into this colossal tenement through the working of certain spells of transmigration, in which my faithful assistants have also been carefully instructed. If you had remained with me, Gaspard, and had not drawn back in your petty pious squeamishness from the marvels and profundities that I should have unveiled for you, it would now be your privilege to share in the creation of this prodigy. And if you had come to Ylourgne a little sooner in your presumptuous prying, I might have made a certain use of your stout bones and muscles. The same use I have made of other young men, who died through accident or violence. But it is too late even for this, since the building of the bones has been completed, and it remains only to invest them with human flesh. My good Gaspard, there is nothing whatever to be done with you, except to put you safely out of the way. Providentially, for this purpose, there is an oubliette beneath the castle, a somewhat dismal lodging-place, no doubt, but one that was made strong and deep by the grim lords of Ylourgne. Gaspard was unable to frame any reply to this sinister and extraordinary speech. Searching his horror-frozen brain for words, he felt himself seized from behind by the hands of unseen beings, who had come, no doubt, in answer to some gesture of Neter, a gesture which the captive had not perceived. He was blindfolded with some heavy fabric, mouldy and musty as a grave-cloth, and was led stumbling through the litter of strange apparatus, and down a winding flight of ruinous narrow stairs, from which the noisome breath of stagnating water, mingled with the oily muskiness of serpents, arose to meet him. He appeared to descend for a distance that would admit of no return. Slowly the stench grew stronger, more insupportable. The stairs ended. A door clanged sullenly on rusty hinges, and Gaspard was thrust forward on a damp, uneven floor that seemed to have been worn away by myriad feet. He heard the grating of a ponderous slab of stone. His wrists were untied, the bandage was removed from his eyes, and he saw by the light of flickering torches a round hole that yawned in the oozing floor at his feet. Beside it was the lifted slab that had formed its lid. Before he could turn to see the faces of his captors, to learn if they were men or devils, he was seized rudely and thrust into the gaping hole. He fell through Erebus-like darkness, for what seemed like an immense distance before he struck bottom. Lying half-stunned in a shallow, fetid pool, he heard the funereal thud of the heavy slab as it slid back into place far above him.